on the oil and gas that they drill in the UK, because these are international companies, you see. So they are pulling out oil and gas all around the world, and they're paying tax all around the world. Now, here in the UK, that part for which we tax them, the tax right now is 40% on their profit, which is about twice what any other company pays. But it's now gone up to 65% from now on of their profit, which is about 3 times what any other company pays. So that's a very big additional tax placed on the likes of BP, Shell, and indeed Centrica. But as I say, these are international companies. They're not just local. And what's more, they're making their money on the upstream part, the drilling, the pulling that gas and electricity out and trading it on the wholesale market. It's not money that they're making on charging you and me more than they should for supplying us with gas and electricity. Shell and BP are not a supplier to ourselves.
Are they victims to some degree of fashionable prejudice, in the sense that, for instance, other industries can enjoy bumper profits for reasons that have nothing to do necessarily with the business choices they've made? The obvious one right now would be, Big Pharma. But there isn't that clamour for Big Pharma to be whacked with punitive taxes because they're seen as sort of cuddly and benign for the most part.
Well, I think they're thought of as cuddly and benign right now because they did such a wonderful job in creating vaccines and pills, which has meant that we've been so successful in fighting against COVID. But they're not always thought of as cuddly and friendly. I think now one of the real reasons that there is this concern about the big companies like BP and like Shell is because people think that, first of all this money is made here in the UK, and secondly, that somehow we are personally paying more in order that they make the profit. So where I think one of their biggest mistakes is they haven't put out somebody to explain and talk about it, and not just on results day, but all the way through. Because, it is a complicated issue. It's very easy to connect up 2 parts of a jigsaw, but actually they're not the parts that ought to be connected. And at the same time, as they're making profits, they're able to invest it in the future, which is predominantly wind farms, and hopefully they'll also be engaged in small nuclear. And if they don't make those profits, they can't invest. And if they don't pay a dividend, it doesn't go into our pension funds. So, it is not a straightforward equation, but the way it is often presented, it's as if it was a straightforward equation.
Yeah. And as you say, we want companies like BP to go beyond petroleum, don't we? And if that involves getting involved in nuclear and certainly in wind farms and all the rest of it, then all power to them. It's a bit media navel-gazing, but on the point you make that they should have been putting people up to explain their complicated argument, is that just a decision of high-ups? Why do you think they've taken it?
Well, I don't really know because I can't see inside their heads, but it is pretty common that where a company knows it's going to be hit for 6 by in the way that it is interviewed and the questions that it's asked, that they will debate as to, do I want to go out there and be shot, or do I just hide and let it all wash through because whatever I say is still going to be as bad. And so I can understand.
They cross their fingers and hope there's a bigger story around.
Yeah, I can understand the natural inclination to go and hide, but the reality is you can't explain everything in a 30-second soundbite or a few characters on Twitter. And if you don't explain your story yourself, then there's a very big chance that somebody will put 2 things together which don't match, and you'll be in a worse situation. Perhaps one last thing, if I may say briefly. I think another thing that they could do is they could contribute either themselves into a charitable fund or into one of the other charitable funds that are available, which will help people by making grants who are on the poorest end of society. And anything like that at least is directly giving back, even though it may not be, they're not a supplier. They are actually doing a little bit more than they have to. And I think, again, this is one of the situations where you do have to do a little bit more than you have to if you're a company making very large profits.